Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're always talking about upping our game, right?
Mhm.
And what better way than to uh, level up those critical thinking skills?
It's like having a mental toolkit, right? You want to make sure you've got all the best tools in there.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're talking about going beyond the basics. We're not just going to tell you to think critically. We're going to give you those actionable tools, those techniques to really sharpen that mental edge.
Because, critical thinking, it's not just something you're born with. It's a skill. You can learn it, you can practice it, you can get better at it.
Absolutely. And the first tool we're pulling out of our toolkit is all about being what we like to call the questioner in chief. So asking questions, obviously important, right? But are we asking the right questions?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about those simple yes or no questions, but those really juicy, thought-provoking ones.
The kind of questions that really make you think, I hadn't considered that before. Because let's be real, every piece of information we encounter, every opinion, every article, it all comes from a certain perspective with its own biases, right?
Totally.
So when you start asking those critical questions like, why do they believe that? Or what's the other side of this story? That's when things get interesting. You start to uncover those underlying assumptions, those hidden biases, and suddenly things become much clearer. It's like, upgrading from a blurry old picture to a high definition one.
I love that analogy. And, it makes me think about how sometimes we can get stuck in our own little bubbles, seeing the world from just our own perspective.
Hmm.
Which brings us to our next tool, exploring multiple perspectives.
Right, because the world's not flat, is it? And neither are most issues.
Exactly.
And this is where empathy really comes into play. Now, I don't mean you have to agree with everyone, but being able to step into someone else's shoes, to understand their viewpoint, even if it's completely different from yours.
It's challenging,
Yeah.
but so important.
Like it is,
Yeah.
but it's so valuable because when you understand where someone else is coming from, even if you disagree with them, you can have a much more productive conversation. And frankly, your own arguments get stronger. You've anticipated the counter arguments, you've considered different angles.
Right. It's like that saying, iron sharpens iron. Now, speaking of tackling challenges, our next tool is all about breaking down those big, overwhelming problems into smaller, more manageable pieces. We call this divide and conquer your thinking.
Because our brains, let's face it, they're not wired for those giant, complex problems. It's like staring up at a mountain, right? It can feel impossible.
Yeah, totally overwhelming.
But when you break it down, when you focus on one step at a time, suddenly it doesn't seem so impossible anymore.
It's like, what information do I need? What are my options? What's the next step?
Exactly. And that's how you conquer those mental mountains.
I love it. Okay, so we've made some decisions, tackled some challenges. Now it's time for our next tool, the rewind button.
Ah, yes. This is where things get really interesting. Because how often do we actually take the time to look back on our decisions, our actions, and really analyze what worked, what didn't work, what we could have done differently?
It's like that post-game analysis, but for life, right?
Precisely. And just like an athlete watches game footage to improve their performance, we can rewind. We can review our own game footage and learn from our experiences. Did we jump to a conclusion too quickly? Did we miss a crucial piece of information? By analyzing those past decisions, we can refine our thinking process, avoid repeating the same mistakes, and make better choices in the future.
It's all about turning those mistakes into valuable lessons, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of sharpening our minds, our final tool for today is all about embracing those friendly debates. Now, before you picture those heated arguments on social media,
Yeah, not exactly what we're going for here.
right, we're talking about engaging in thoughtful, respectful discussions where you can really flex those critical thinking muscles.
Right, where you can practice articulating your thoughts clearly, defending your positions, and just as importantly, actively listening to counterarguments.
It's all about creating that space where you can test your ideas, get feedback, and refine your thinking even further.
Exactly. So there you have it, folks. 5 powerful tools to upgrade your mental toolkit to become a sharper, more critical thinker. And the best part is, you can start using these tools today in every aspect of your life.
Absolutely. So here's a little something to ponder as you go about your day. What's one challenge you're facing right now, big or small? Now imagine tackling that challenge using one or even all 5 of these tools. How does your approach change? What new insights emerge?